Hello, and welcome to the KCSA Mental Health Virtual Investor Conference. My name is Allison Sauce, and on behalf of KCSA Strategic Communications, as well as our co-host, the OTC Markets Group, we're very pleased you have joined us for our next live presentation from PharmAla Biotech Holdings. Before I introduce our speaker, a few points to note. Please submit your questions in the question box to the left of the slides. If you're interested in scheduling a meeting with PharmAla, please click on the Meetings tab found on the left navigation bar. You'll be able to view the company's availability and submit a meeting request. On a final note, all of today's presentations will be recorded and available for 24/7 replay. At this point, I am very pleased to welcome Nick Kadish, Founder and Chief Executive Officer, Shane Morris, Chief Operating Officer, and Harpreet Kaur, Vice President of Research of PharmAla Biotech Holdings, which trades on the CSE under the symbol MDMA. Welcome, Nick.
Thanks, Allison. It's great to be here. Hello to everyone at the conference. My name is Nick Kadish. I'm the founder and CEO of PharmAla Biotech. We are an MDMA company currently trading on the Canadian Securities Exchange. PharmAla basically only does two things. We're a pretty simple company. We are currently the only publicly traded manufacturer of clinical grade MDMA anywhere in the world. In point of fact, we're the only we manufacture all of our active pharmaceuticals here in Canada and sell them all over the world, generally speaking to large institutional clients. We're also a leading developer of MDXX compounds. So these are analogs of MDMA that exhibit better in a range of indications. And we'll be talking about both of these today. We founded PharmAla under the global marketplace. The first MDMA around. Profit companies synthesize clinical grade MDMA and make it available for sale to both research through the Canadian Special Access Program. MDMA, out of all of the psychedelic molecules, is the closest to final approval. It's been through now 2 phase 3 trials. Is that MAPS will be putting forward a very shortly. With a reporting with our institutional partners.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm just going to take over here to discuss our business lines. As Nick has outlined, we are a relatively simple company where we focus on 3 main channels of activity. First, we do API supply. So this would be MDMA that we produce under EU GMP conditions here in Canada for export around the world. We're the first publicly traded company to make GMP MDMA. Our sales to date in 2022 is over $500,000, and in August, 1 month in the last the previous quarter certainly was about 300K. So this channel of work that we do is really, the supply chain is really focusing on allowing us to have a cash flow process in place. The next and arguably more important work that we do is on novel chemical entities. We are working on research to be able to do new chemicals that are in the MDXX class that will be much greater safety profile, which include fewer adverse events and enables new indications. And we have a very efficient regulatory plan, which I think we will touch on a little bit later. And the third channel of work that we do is novel delivery mechanisms. from a drug delivery perspective. And we've got patent opportunities in that area. I'm just going to move on to the next slide. What we've actually done on these channels. So, for example, with our generic MDMA is what we call it. It's our supply chain for MDMA into primarily research at the moment is fully complete. We have process development completed. We have manufacturing completed at an API level.
Check. Can you hear me?
And we also have the ability to tech transfer these processes into other facilities. Again, full API, EU GMP production, encapsulation is also possible, and sales around the world from a primary Canadian high quality controlled system from an EU GMP perspective. The preclinical IP, we have 2 process patents filed in Q1 of 2022. We have 1 composition of matter PCT submitted. That's, as I indicated before, our area of research is NCEs on MDXX, and that covers 6 of those. We have preclinical data validating the improvement safety profile of our ALA series of chemicals, which we can have you'll get to see some data shortly. Clinical development, our preclinical research is complete. We've got clinical design ongoing for the next phases. We've had our pre-IND meeting with FDA, which went very well. That occurred 2 weeks ago. And we have strong research partnerships, in particular with several major US, with a major US medical school who does a lot of our animal work on the clinical development side. At this point,
thanks, Shane.
I'll hand over back to Nick.
Thanks very much, Shane. Sorry about that, guys. Clearly had some technical issues there at the beginning. Look, MDMA has a lot of uses. And of course, that's why we focus so strongly on making sure that we provide an accessible supply for researchers all over the globe. That supply that we provide to institutional researchers also allows us to generate cash flow here and now today that we can use to fund our own research into our novel analogs business. There's quite a few indications that are currently being examined for MDMA. Largely speaking, these are psychotherapy enabling protocols, but there's a number of protocols that are looking at MDMA as well, just as a pure pharmaceutical molecule. Our own research has focused on 3 major families of molecules, which Harpreet is going to talk about in a few minutes. These include the ALA family, which is our front-runner family. That's the family that we discussed with FDA just a few weeks ago. The ABA family of non-controlled molecules with both improved toxicology and reduced burden from a regulatory perspective for clinical development, PharmAla 1, and of course, our future development pipeline. We focus very heavily on developing proprietary systems that focus specifically on the MDXX class. Unlike a lot of companies in this space, we're very, very focused on MDMA and its analogs. We don't do psilocybin, we don't do DMT. We really just develop molecules in this class for a couple of reasons. One is we've seen some great benefit to the research that we've already done. Number 2, we believe that there's a lot of applications for MDMA analogs, both safer analogs and analogs that work in an improved fashion in specific populations of concern. And so to talk a little bit about our research, I'm going to pass it over to Harpreet Kaur, and she can walk you through the preclinical data that we've already assembled.
Thanks, Nick. Hello, everyone. My name is Harpreet. We've seen a lot of MAPS data. I don't think this is new to anybody who's in the psychedelic field, really. But I wanted to touch on the drug safety update report that MAPS had published, where they clearly identified that there is a medium risk of cardiovascular and cerebrovascular events with MDMA. And part of the reason of that, or the underlying cause really, is that MDMA, being a racemic molecule, has very strong binding to 5-HT2 receptors in our body. 5-HT2B has been indicated in cardiovascular valvulopathy. So how do we address the side effect knowing how efficacious MDMA is? Can we increase the patient population such that we can have patients who have comorbidities of heart indications in our studies? What we have designed and developed is ALA-002. ALA-002 is an interesting molecule for us because it's an analog of MDMA. In all of our non-clinical studies, where we've done pharmacodynamic and pharmacokinetic studies, has shown that we have very strong social preference while reducing cardiotoxic events and in ensuring that there's no rise in hypothermia or rise in body temperature. Our plan with ALA-002 is to target a very specific patient population, which is autism spectrum disorder adults who are high functioning without intellectual impairment, who are suffering from social anxiety. A major part of autism spectrum disorder that adds to the economic burden is that high functioning adults with autism spectrum disorder are unable to maintain a quality of life and sustain their jobs. The caregiver cost increases substantially as the age progresses. Part of this is because of the social anxiety that they face. Uh, Alicia Danford and Charles Grobe, in a pilot phase 2 study with MDMA assisted psychotherapy, have already demonstrated that MDMA is effective in this patient population. However, the side effects have not been addressed by MDMA. ALA-002 addresses exactly that. In the next slide, you'll see that we have shown in C57 mice, which are the general mice that people study all compounds on, and BTBR, the gold standard for autism spectrum disorder. Um, we've shown that when you give these mice or you dose these mice with ALA-002 compared to racemic MDMA, which is in the black bars, that the systolic pressure, diastolic pressure, and the arterial mean pressure does not rise as much as MDMA. ALA-002 is therefore showing a much better cardiac response in both C57 and BTBR mice. As a matter of fact, in C57 mice, we are seeing the response comparable to saline. In BTBR, we are seeing that the response, even with increasing doses, is substantially lower than racemic MDMA. We also studied the abuse liability of racemic MDMA and ALA-002. Racemic MDMA definitely has a certain level of abuse liability in the condition place preference test that we did. ALA-002, as you can see from this graph, is almost comparable to saline, substantially lower than racemic MDMA in both the C57 and the BTBR mice. So we've addressed two big side effects, the abuse liability component through our molecule and the cardiac safety. The next slide speaks to actually the efficacy aspect of it. It's important to show that and understand that the efficacy is not dampened while we're addressing the side effects. In the three-chamber social preference test that we did with both C57 and BTBR mice, we saw that the ALA-002 maintains its social preference comparable to MDMA, which is seen on the graph on the right. The graph on the left shows you that there's no rise in the amount of entries by these mice. This is important because we also want to make sure that there's no stimulant-like effect or excessive stimulant-like effect by the modification done to our molecule. In summary, what we're really saying is that ALA-002 not only maintains the social preference in the BTBR mouse, which is a gold standard for autism, but it also shows that there's a dampened cardiovascular side effect compared to racemic MDMA. There's a significantly dampened abuse liability effect compared to racemic MDMA. And in data not shown here, we've also seen that there's no rise in core-body temperature when dosed with ALA-002 compared to racemic MDMA. Core-body temperature is important to take into consideration because it is associated with neurotoxicity. Nick, I'll hand it over to you to discuss the next regulatory strategy.
Thanks very much, Harpreet. Look, in summation, MDMA company, PharmAla Biotech, we've really focused on a couple of points here, but the biggest one has been speed. We're first to market to manufacture MDMA for clinical trial purposes. That's allowed us to generate cash flow that drives all of our research that we're currently doing into ALA02. We hold the patent for ALA02, as well as the entire ALA, ABA, PharmAla 1, all of our patent families. And not only has our preclinical data borne out our hypothesis on our novel molecules, it's in fact been persuasive enough that we are pleased to be able to move into clinical trial first in human next year. On the manufacturing side, well, we continue to grow our business. We anticipate that having really begun to sell in August of this year, we will hit sales of $1 million for the 2022 year and continue to grow the business by doubling our sales for next year. In 2024, as MDMA approaches approvals, we anticipate that our sales will increase exponentially, and we will be hitting $10 million of sales annually. In addition, we've announced a number of partnerships in the last couple of months. Primarily, I want to focus in on our partnership with Mindset Pharma. So as of right now, we are the exclusive global reseller for the GMP psilocybin that they are currently manufacturing. That makes PharmAla not only the leading developer of MDMA analogs, it is also the only company currently selling 2 GMP clinical grade APIs to researchers everywhere in the world. I think that makes us a leading company in this space. I certainly think that makes us one of the leading entities in psychedelics in Canada. And at this point, I'd be very pleased, along with my colleagues, to take questions from folks in the chat. Oh, and again, I apologize for the technical issues. I think you're going to have to satisfy yourself with just my voice and not my video today. First question: what IP protections do we have for ALA? So for all of our novel analogs, we have full patents filed with either provisional if we're still working on the preclinical research, or full patents already filed if we completed the preclinical research. Generally speaking, we move very, very quickly on our regulatory. So we aim to have all of our preclinical data generated and submitted to the final patent prior to us bringing the molecule to regulators. But in the case of, as an example, ALA02, we brought the data that we generated in preclinical to regulators prior to the full patent even being published, because that's how quickly we like to move. Next question: can I speak to the sales channels and resources to support our $10 million sales goal? Yeah, absolutely. And I'll just switch back to the sales forecast slide. So as you can see, this year, for our $1 million sales, we really only looked at 2 markets, Oceania and the Americas. We didn't do any business in Europe whatsoever. We project that Europe will actually be a major center for MDMA sales, MDMA research, what have you. That's one major channel that we haven't even accessed yet. It'll open next year, but it won't be a major component until 2024 for us. The other thing I'll highlight is, this is an area of rapid regulatory change. PharmAla is a regulatory first organization. All of us, myself, Shane, Harpreet, we all have regulatory expertise because we all believe that regulatory expertise is what will define winners and losers in this space. And so some of the regulatory changes that are happening in the next little while are the opening of clinics in jurisdictions like the Caribbean, where governments are allowing exemptions to existing drug laws, changes to regulations in Canada allowing for the dosing of patients through the special access program. And so, we see these regulatory changes as having an enormous positive benefit for PharmAla's near-term and long-term sales prospects with MDMA, and of course, as the exclusive global reseller for Mindset's GMP psilocybin as well. There's a question about which research institutions we're working with. Harpreet, would you like to speak to that?
Sure, absolutely. We've partnered with University of Arkansas Medical Sciences and the University of Windsor to carry out most of our non-clinical and drug discovery work. We have other partnerships with preclinical CROs that help us with our non-clinical work as well. And our work have regulatory consultants partnerships that help us with our entry to markets in different regions.
Thank you. We also have now, I wouldn't call them partnerships, right? They're our sales clients, but we're working with 3 different institutions in Australia. We're working with one institution in California. It's the University of California system, where we are now a vendor. We're working with a major institution in the state of New York. These sales agreements, they don't just support the research that we do financially. They also allow us access to leading researchers in this space. We're qualified suppliers for them. We're trusted partners. And so when we have questions for them, or we want to discuss something with them, we have access to them. And that's, I think, an enormous part of why we feel the manufacturing business works synergistically with the research business. There's a question here on our key milestones for 2023. And I'll see if I can get that slide to come up. I cannot get that slide to come up. Just one moment. Well, I apologize, guys. It looks like my access to the platform has been turned off. Maybe I can get one of my colleagues.
Nick, do you see it now? The slide 18?
No, I'm completely locked out of the platform now. So Shane, could you walk us through the key milestones from 2023? It's slide 24.
So I think it's up on the screen right now. So I can walk you through. Certainly, our 2023. The question is around key milestones for 2023. I think what we have up on the slide here is 2022, so taking on, basically building on a great year.
There you are, Shane. Okay, I'm back now. I apologize, guys.
Sorry. The question
we don't have a 2023 slide. Yeah.
No, we don't. But I was going to speak to it. But you go ahead. You go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No,
sure.
You're back.
Look, guys, our biggest priority, of course, right now is getting ALA-02 into clinical trial. I think that's going to generate the best returns for investors and certainly the best sort of future for the company. Obviously, we walked you through our sales forecasts, opening up the European market for sales and increasing our sales, recurring sales, through some of those new channels that we discussed in the sales forecast.
I'd just like to add that the feedback that we received from the FDA has given us enough confidence to move into the clinical trial next year. So we are actively working towards filing of our IND and working with CRO to get the clinical trial design finalized so that we can actually start the clinical trial phase 2A, 2B next year.
And the final question here, when will the advances we're making be reflected in the share price? Well, look, guys, I got to be honest with you. Companies don't control share price. We've got quite a few macroeconomic headwinds, as you can imagine. But I would say that we are, our price is down roughly in line with all of the other companies in the space, roughly in line with broader biotech. So, I think, broadly speaking, biotech is down about 60-70%, and that's exactly in line with how far our stock has fallen. So we're all waiting for market conditions to improve. We're all waiting for stock price to improve. But the good news is, in the meantime, we can continue on with our work. We generate cash flow on a monthly basis through our MDMA manufacturing business, and that allows us to continue on without really having to raise additional funds. And if there's no other questions, I'll thank the members of my team for their time. Thank you all for your attention, and look forward to speaking with all of you